Thank you, Your Excellencies, for taking the time here. And it's my task to bring all the lofty AI things down to reality. Yeah. John McCarthy was one of the founders of, one of the persons that actually coined the word artificial intelligence. Yeah. And he also has this famous quote. He says that, as soon as it works, we don't call it AI anymore. Now, if you've been an Amazon retail customer for the past 30 years, you've been using AI for the past 30 years. We just didn't call it AI. Similarities, recommendations, customers who bought X also bought Y, fraud detection, forecasting. A typical warehouse for Amazon has 30,000 robots in it. There's no pilot there that controls these robots. These robots need to be autonomous. We just didn't. Is it AI? Yeah, because it bases on the technologies like deep learning and reinforcement learning. And every time we got a step further in the kind of things that we were able to do. So what actually really changed? Why is it that we have a forum at the World Government Summit if this has been around for the past 30 years? Is that every time we take a new step, we're able to have larger data sets, we are able to train these models, as they are called, without human supervision, without having to tell the model up front, this is a cat and that's a dog, things like that. So we are able to build these larger and larger models, but something else happened. Yeah? If you look at the traditional, but also not just if you think about retail or things like that, if you think about the amazing things that AI, we just didn't call it AI, has done in, for example, healthcare. Yeah? In Sweden, they ran a public program for women over 50, they can get a mammogram every 2 years. That means that radiologists are looking at thousands of mammograms a day. Yeah? AI detects 30% more cancers than the radiologists. And is as good as 2 radiologists. Now, the UK now launches a program for 700,000 women in the UK to get this year mammograms as well, and use the same program. Detecting brain damage at young infants is very hard to do with physical tests, but have their EEGs of babies, which are radically different from those of adults, we can use AI for that. If people have a stroke, every hour, every minute that you don't treat them, they may lose 1 million brain cells. So if you can just use a video of your smartphone to actually detect whether there are potentials for a stroke, you can immediately treat them before they even arrive in the ambulance. So all of these kind of things we've been building about the past 10, 20 years. And what happened in a traditional technology adoption cycle is that actually you start off with some of the innovators, things get developed in the lab, you get some early adopters, and this is a famous bell curve by George Moore. You cross the chasm, and then the majority. What happened in about 2 years ago, at the end of 2023, is that suddenly, to the large population, we delivered something called AI for suddenly everybody else to use, without educating them. Yeah? So suddenly, everybody starts to think that AI is magic. It can do things that nobody else can do. It will take over our own intelligence. Well, let me tell you something. There is something called Moravec's paradox. Yeah? Imagine you're at your dinner table and there's a 5-year-old there as well, and he's never ever done anything like clearing the table or putting things in the dishwasher. You ask him to do it, he will do it. He will figure out how things has to go into the dishwasher and we'll put the dishwasher on. AI can't do that. Yeah? Our brains are smart enough to try and figure out unknown situations, things where we've never been in before. However, current AI, you can give it a 75-page PDF and ask it to summarize it, and it's pretty accurate. It doesn't mean that AI suddenly is going to take over. There's a number of tasks for which it's really good. Yeah? Now, this cycle is something that normally would take 10 years. But now it only took 2 months. And that means that everybody starts to have knee-jerk reactions. Now, governments suddenly started to put protections in place, or we don't really know what the risks are. Yeah? Because there's some areas where risk is really important. Healthcare, financial systems, things like that. But there are also many different areas where there is no risk. Yeah, but all of this became a confusion because we suddenly dumped technology in the hands of everyone without explaining them exactly how to use it. And the offering is overwhelming. I mean, there may have been one company that actually sort of started this confusion with OpenAI, launching their tools. But now, every week, you'll see a new model coming out, you see competition, one is better reasoning than the others. Yeah, DeepSeek comes out, says it only costed us $5 million to train a reasoning model. And then a few days later, Stanford and University of Washington say, oh, you know what, we did it only for $5. So if you all of these see these stories in the news, it's not so weird that people get confused about all of this. Yeah? What are the kind of things that we really can do with this technology? How important is it going to be for your company or for your organization? Anthropic, one of the larger AI companies, actually this week launched a report which they called the Economic Impact Report. This basically says, how are our tools being used? Who are using these tools? And it turns out that the majority are actually engineers. Software engineers use these tools about 40% of the time. And then it drops off very quickly, and then you get marketing, sales, tools like that, customer service. But the majority is still an engineering approach. Now, last year, actually, I talked about another area which I thought was going to be extremely important. If we do not want to create a new digital divide in this world, we need to make sure that these models include cultural awareness. And fortunately, this is just some of the areas that you see all these models. Forget about it. It's just that there are so many different dimensions that it's easy to get confused if you're not an engineer. This is important. It's something that I predicted last year we're going to see has become reality. Falcon 3 is a model trained here in the UAE, but it's trained on traditional languages. But Mullen is trained purely on Arabic languages and 100% on Saudi texts. JAIS, another model here from the UAE, is trained on both Arabic and English. And so there's a whole range, there's a wide variety of new models coming out that aren't necessarily Western, US-centric, but are actually incorporating the cultural knowledge, because it's not just about language. It is about the cultural embodiment that sits in that language. Yeah, if you ask a Western European LLM to give a review of Isabella Allende book, you'll get a very different answer from a review given by a South American LLM. So the important thing then becomes for all of us, with these new technologies, don't believe everything you read on the internet or in the media. Go and experiment. Yeah? Because you need to be able to keep under control what you can actually do with this. Yeah? Yes, there is great advantage to be had in customer service. It's easy to see how that works. But how does it work for your government? How does it work with secret documents? How does it work with all sorts of different things that you actually need to take into account in real life, beyond the simple examples? Okay, you've built your chatbots. And now? What are you going to do next? And one of the things that I really want to urge you about when you start to think about sort of this experimentation, compare these two things. Quality of your results and how much is it going to cost you? Because if every mammogram image is going to cost you $3, you're not, as a hospital, you can't afford that. Yeah? But are there different models? Is there different technology? Could you maybe do a step back in this quality of these models and get an equally good result. If your customer service suddenly becomes 60% more efficient, but it costs you 10 times as much, is that really what you want to do? And by the way, when I say cost, I also mean sustainability. Now, I come out of a world where, the technology world, where every resource that you've used, you had to pay exactly for that particular resource that you've used. Now, those resources, in general, also equate energy, or milligrams CO2. So if you hear me talk about cost, you might also hear me say sustainability. How can we make sure that not only our costs are exploding, but that we can make sure that these technologies don't ruin our planet at the same time? Now, I'm going to go back to sort of the lessons learned from 2006, 2008, when we launched cloud computing. Again, a complete new evolution in the way that we're building digital systems. You no longer needed to have your own hardware and things like that. Now, before cloud, everything was constrained because you had to have your own data center, you had to have your own servers. And Amazon retail, I had to really be carefully predicting how much capacity I would need for the coming, let's say, Christmas season. Yeah, because if I would buy too much hardware, my CFO would be unhappy. If I didn't buy enough hardware, my customers would be unhappy. So it was a careful kind of thing. And always things happened that you had to dance around. You had to be really creative to live within these constraints. And then cloud computing came along. Suddenly, you no longer needed to worry about how much capacity you needed, and two other things became massively important. How fast can we innovate, and how quickly can we deliver the kind of things that we want to deliver? Suddenly, everybody forgot that that also costed money. Yeah, and there is something that is called Jevonson's paradox. Again, one of these paradoxes. It means that if we can start doing things more efficient, you just don't bask in the efficiency of that, you're just going to do more of it. Yeah, so instead of that, people just doing, oh, now I don't have to spend that much on this particular application. No, you're going to build more. And it's the same thing that we'll probably see, in AI as well. You know, if you get your efficiencies, you'll start to do more of these things that are so efficient. Now, with all of this, it turned out that a number of years later, after that, everybody was going fast and innovating and building amazing products. So you have to think that Uber, Dropbox, Airbnb, all these companies didn't exist without cloud and could not exist without cloud. But after a number of years, after all this innovation, organizations start to figure out, but how much is this costing me? Yeah, because I've never had these constraints anymore. Is this really the most efficient way of doing this? These are the same things that we'll see in AI as well. So let me give you some advice that I've gotten from those years of doing cloud computing and that we were teaching our customers through the Frugal Architect program that apply, in my eyes, to AI as well. Yeah? First of all, and it has nothing to do with cost, security, privacy are non-negotiable. Yeah? If you look at whatever provider you're going to be using or whatever tools you're going to be using, privacy and security should be your number one concern. Make sure that you can fine-tune them all without that your data leaks. Yeah? Coca-Cola and Pepsi should be able to run on the same platform, doing the same things, without having to worry that their data leaks to the others. Costs need to be a non-functional requirement. I know we're all excited about all the things that AI can do for us. But if we don't start thinking up front about sustainability and cost, this will get away from us. And then you build these major applications on the best technology possible, and at some moment you're going to get the bill. And that might be something that you might want to think up front about. Align cost to business. But then I mean is that think about sort of like my customer service example. Yeah? Make sure that the advances, the efficiencies that you get aren't costing you through the nose, aren't costing you tremendous. Yeah? create business level, meaning that we have all these different possibilities, bigger models, smaller models, language models, all of these kind of things. Can you, instead of as the technologists decide which model to use, make sure that the technologists offer to you the decision about, for this I'm willing to pay so much for this particular quality of result. So make sure that you keep things like cost in consideration. And not only tell them that up front, not only allow the business to decide which models or which costs to have, but you actually need to show it. Let me give you an example. My hometown of Amsterdam, or originally my hometown of Amsterdam, in 1972 we had something called the oil crisis, which meant that we had carless Sundays and things like that. Also some research was done in those days, because some houses that were comparable used twice as much energy as the other houses. And so trying to figure out what was going on there, it turns out that those houses that were using twice as much energy had their the electricity meter in the basement, and the other ones had their electricity meters in the hallway. The fact that you just see what your usage is gives people control over their usage. And that's important. Unabsorbed systems create unabsorbed costs. Well, the last thing there is that these constraints that we wanted to shed away, we didn't want to anymore, want to have, we were able to move fast and do innovation and things like that. It means that, yes, we're thinking about it, but constraints breed creativity. Putting constraints into place, build this system, but it cannot cost more than $10,000 a month. Let your engineers be creative in that world, because there are so many different choices. What is AWS, Amazon, the cloud computing division there to help you with? And it's not an advertisement for AWS, but it's sort of kind of want to put this in your head. First and foremost, cloud computing is the best way where you can do these kind of experimentation. Why? Because we've been investing enormously into sustainability and cost reduction. We're the largest corporate purchaser of renewable energy in the world. We are fully on this year on renewables, all of these regions around the world. We also build dedicated chips for doing AI, which means that we can reduce energy as well as costs by 30 to 40% easily by just moving off one of those major chip providers onto the things that AWS does. And most importantly, as I said, experimentation. There's this environment called Bedrock where all the big models are, in every possible variation. Experiment with it. Don't lock yourself into one particular model or one particular provider. These are early days. Take control of it. Make sure that you experiment with it. Find small areas where you think you can have advantages and then go after, go build something. Use 2 or 3 different models to figure out what works for you. And we give you great cost inspection there. And most importantly, also a huge variety of public data sets. For example, one of these public data sets is Digital Earth Africa. Do you want to figure out, start to look at mangrove deterioration in Ghana? Do you want to look at illegal roads being built in Botswana? Which in general means that they're on the way to illegal mining. All these data sets are available. Make sure that also, I think, as your organization, contribute to open data sets, because that drives enormous innovation. Now, chatbots, all these kind of things we can build, but there are way more important problems in this world where I think AI can be applied to. If I think about, what is it, the UN estimates, but by 2050, we have another 2 billion people on this planet. How are we going to feed them? How are we going to make sure they're economically sustainable? How are we going to make sure there's healthcare for everyone? Technology has a significant role to play in all of that. If you think about the new ways of actually, how do you think we're going to make protein for everyone? Rice is a staple for 50% of the world. An organization like the International Vice Research Institute does enormous amount of innovation with AI to bring technology at smallholder farmers, for example. These are the real big problems where we should be applying technology to, not just how efficient can we make our chatbots. Good AI needs good data. Without data, none of this exists. Remember, AI is just a tool. It's about the data, because the data is actually decides how effective this machinery is going to be. And if you have good data, you need good AI, just to make sure. This typical story is, how do you find this needle in a haystack? How do you do that? You use a magnet. Yeah? AI is the magnet to find the needles in our haystack. And you know what? As always, without good people, we won't be able to do good work. AI predicts, we make decisions. It is of augmentation to us. It helps us make decisions. It should not be making decisions for us. With that, I'll leave you with this one. As soon as it works, we don't call it AI anymore. Thank you.